I'm so lucky to have with me today three amazing women who are going to share their perspectives. And I would love to start with Kenya. I got to know you, of course, because you were one of the moms in an ad Red Wine and Blue created during the Virginia governor's race to give voice to a diverse set of suburban moms who felt a little bit differently than the ones we were hearing in all the news coverage. But why are you here? Why did you get involved? And why did you feel compelled to add your voice?
I am a mother of three children, and two are in the public school system. One is currently in college. I believe that it's important for students to receive a high quality education that is steeped in facts, not steeped in fear. In order for us to be able to have a conversation about our history, we have to be able to engage in the facts. And I really have a strong disdain, and I will say disdain, for the use of CRT being used in this way. CRT is an academic term. It has a formal definition, and I really have difficulty with people using that term in a way that is not meant to be used. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to join my voice to this.
On the whole note of speaking out, I would love, Nicole, if you could just share with us a little bit about your story and how you have ended up using your voice.
Until September 27th, I was a mom of four children. September 27th, my 10-year-old daughter died from COVID after having it for just 5 days. And it's been a whirlwind since then because I've been very vocal about speaking out about misinformation and just all the things that I wish I had spoken out about beforehand, but I've been very vocal since then. I've always been that mom that's been very active in the schools, volunteering whenever I can. And in December, this past December, I actually graduated and I'm an elementary school teacher. So definitely the whole critical race theory is, very forefront.
After Teresa died, you went and spoke at a school board meeting. Was that your first time speaking out at a school board meeting? Wow. And you came and you confronted COVID misinformation because you want to help save lives and prevent other families the pain you've been through. I know. And, I'm so curious, Nicole, how do you see the connection between safety in schools when it comes to COVID and then honest education in schools? Is there a connection between all that for you?
It all goes together. Like if they don't have that good education and we're not making sure they're safe at the same time, then what's the point?
Sorrel, you are in Loudoun County, where was sort of the ground zero for so much of this debate over the hot spot. Yes, ma'am.
So I've raised three kids in Loudoun County. I was a very active, engaged parent, having grown up in Long Island, New York, in a similar type of scenario that Loudoun County presents. I was very thirsty to find areas of representation for my kids. So we deposited here in Loudoun County specifically because of the resources that the school system offered. But my husband and I knew, because of my journey, what that actually could interpret or translate into in terms of sacrifice. I became one of those parents who did not want to be very passive. And so I jumped in, proactively engaged a lot of the administration, jumped on committees and wanted to learn about disparities, academic disparities, and always raised the question, you talk about brown and black children not performing as well as their counterparts, but I always challenged the question about, well, what kind of environment are they actually thriving in? Are they inspired when they walk into their classrooms? Do those teachers actually step out and actually want to build relationships with children that don't look like them? This journey for Loudoun County isn't new. The Minority Student Achievement Committee was set up by the school board, and they recognized that parents were trying to figure out and students were struggling. But the story is old. The story has been going on for decades and decades.
You actually ran for Loudoun County School Board, and
Yes,
one of your opponents had some interesting thoughts about slavery.
the Republican won in my Catoctin district, and when he was elected and took his oath to sit on the school board, he actually volunteered to be on the equity committee, which I found kind of interesting. And people were like, wow, that's very, look at him. He's such a great person and wants to learn. Yeah, well, it was probably about 2 weeks into that when he was actually quoted in a professional development training saying that slaves actually benefited from the patronage of their masters because they actually got food and room and board. Anybody with that particular mindset that sits with people who believe in the work of creating equitable climates, what exactly is your agenda here? So there was a major push for him to be out. They voted, finally, the school board actually, with a lot of work, because they did not want to address this issue publicly, the school board finally made a motion and he was removed from the committee. But he still sits as a school board member representing my district, and he's potentially running, not potentially, he is a candidate for U.S. Congress right now.
What has it meant in particular to you, Kenya and Nicole, who currently have kids in the schools? What has it been like to have them in a school environment in the midst of that whole debate going on?
I constantly make sure that my kids know certain things, that how really things happened. It's crazy watching some people say, we can't do this. They're going to, the one I love is they're going to indoctrinate our kids. Everything's just blown out of proportion.
The microaggressions have increased. We're also Jewish. And so that adds another layer. We are hearing more of the Hitler wasn't that bad comments. Another child had said in a class, well, I know what George Floyd's favorite color is, neon. Were those aggressions handled in a way where their parents were notified, they were immediately sent to the principal's or assistant principal's office, things like that? Absolutely not. So when microaggressions are left undealt with appropriately, then they become actual aggressions.
No kidding. None of that seems that micro.
I tell my kids every day, when you go to school, if someone says anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, whether it's about your religion or it's about your race, you need to make sure that you tell an adult. And if an adult does not act appropriately, I need to know that they did not act appropriately so that I can handle this. I fear for my children going into high school and what those kids who are doing these microaggressions here and there, and the teachers and administrators or whomever not addressing them what I feel is appropriately. What's going to happen when they go to high school?
My kids were in middle school and went through the high school. And so the stories are real. My daughter just shared with me, she's 25. She shared with me just this past Christmas an opportunity where she was at a party in high school in a nearby area, and they were outside looking at the pretty trees. And one of the girls said to her, the only reason why you were invited is so that we can see how well you hung from the tree. And the reality is, and I think Kenya and Nicole know, is that we want our children to come home so that we can protect them and address it. But I know when it happened to me, I didn't come home every single time. Every single time I was subjected to it, a little bit of me changed, okay? A little bit of my innocence changed, a little bit of who I am and my spirit changed. It's exhausting. It's called like racial fatigue to constantly be in this fight mode, okay? And then it's even more diminishing when you hear someone say, what? There's no racism. This is Loudoun County.
What bothers me is that when this situation happened this year with Youngkin and whatnot, and everyone talking about white children and feeling very bad about being white, no one ever had a conversation about the hundreds of years that Black children have been in public education and have been taught to dislike the fact that they were Black, dislike the fact that their ancestors were enslaved, to feel bad about that, to feel like they are somehow less than because their ancestors were enslaved. It's not that we should feel bad that our ancestors were enslaved, because our ancestors passed down the strongest of the strong DNA to us because they had to survive. That is power. What is not is being someone who enslaved others. Why is history not taught from that perspective, of a humane perspective? And no one talks about that moment when a Black child goes to school and hears that, and then they are in a classroom where they have to go and pick cotton. That's their field trip. I had that field trip. They don't talk about the feeling of a Black child when they have the simulation of an auction block for enslaved people. They don't talk about what happens to those Black children, but they want to talk about the one time one white child may come, possibility of coming up and saying, in school, I felt bad. Can we have a very open and honest conversation about what has happened in public education to Black and brown students for hundreds of years?
I don't think any one of us, bringing children into this world ever got the impression that it would be, at least I know from my perspective, fair. And there's almost a sense of negligence on my part if I did not work on preparing my children for that. Okay, so, when people say to me, you have a conversation with your son about how he drives and he encounters with police? Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Why wouldn't I? This is what we have been doing for generations, figuring out how to protect our children. Okay. And if we didn't get a book, we just watched our parents do it, and they watched their parents do it. And that's what we do. This whole CRT victim oppressor, my children, like Kenya said, are empowered with knowledge. When you teach kids the truth, regardless of who they are, any adult will appreciate the truth. So our kids are empowered. In addition, they are trained and introduced to be able to recognize injustice, okay? Not only recognize it, speak up and act on it. It also teaches them some level of meaningfulness about their experiences, because they can then understand why they're being treated so poorly, and they can understand the sacrifices of the ancestors that came before them. That's not the definition of a victim.
When you think about politicians and their motivation for stoking fear around these issues, it seems to me that is exactly what they're trying to stifle. The power that happens when, it doesn't seem like kids really have any issue at all with confronting honest history, that they are empowered by it. They want to say, hey, let's do better than this. Let's build something better. Let's make our country better. We know we can be better than this. And that would mean disrupting the status quo.
The purpose of public education is to create an informed citizen. And if we want to create an informed citizen, then we must teach critical thinking and logic. Students can look at history and be able to understand what's going on. They understand right from wrong. You don't have to put in opinions into it. You just simply need to present them with the text, present them with the facts, have conversations around it, have debate about it. That is teaching them critical thinking. That's teaching them logic. That's teaching them how to actually think for themselves without having someone else think for them. The problem that we're having is that we have a number of people who believe that students need to be spoon-fed factoids about false history, false reality that is based on American exceptionalism. And when you are thinking about American exceptionalism, then that means you are discarding not just the Black history and the texture that makes the United States. You are discarding all brown people.
As speaking as someone that's lived in Virginia their whole life, I've realized that I was lied to as far as the history that I was taught here, that I realized that we were kind of made to feel like they said slaves enjoyed it, and how their they were taken care of. And, then as I got older and I started reading and learning more, and I was like, it was all a lie. A lot of the history books down here in Virginia and in the South were influenced by the Daughters of the Confederacy.
After the war, it was an intentional lobby to make sure that this loss was portrayed as some kind of honor, which is why so many people hold this Confederate flag. That's part of our honor and our tradition. There was an intentional indoctrination by them to make sure this story was told. So here we are now with people who want to be a part of and share in the glory of all of this, what they perceive to be good, but they don't want the burden of the history that is bad.
My oldest daughter, when she was in elementary school, she came home and we asked her, what did she learn? And she was talking about, well, we were learning about slaves. And I was like, you're learning about people, Africans who were enslaved. And then she was like, oh, okay, that's not how it was spoken about. I said, but that's how we speak about it. Then we learned about the people who owned the enslaved. They were called planters. I said, stop. They were not planting anything, sweetie. They are not called planters.
The whitewashing, the diminishing of these experiences still exist today. And one thing that we don't give our children or our young kids the credit to become very empathetic, okay, to have empathy. And this is what the truth will do. The truth will bring out, with problem solvers. Okay, they will bring out the humanity that exists in us all. It'll bring out empathy.
Most of our educators are not going through diversity training. That's not something that is mandated by the State Department. But also we need to try to hire and retain diverse teaching staffs, because diverse teachers doesn't just benefit students of color, it also benefits white students. And people don't ever talk about that. Is that having a minority, it changes your perspective on what you thought a Black person was. Black people are seen as a monolith. Like, we're just all a monolithic group. We all act the same way. We all do the same thing. But if you think about it, we are 3 Black women who are in suburbia. And the reason why they didn't speak to us about our feelings, about what we are thinking about, is because they equate suburbia with white. They equate urban with Black.
Absolutely.
And so if they see me, they automatically say, you're urban. Like, sweetie, no, I'm not. I live in the suburbs.
They basically don't see us.
We are not visible. We're not seen. We're not thought about. And that means our children aren't seen, aren't thought about. It makes my kids feel as if they are expendable, that their education doesn't matter.
Let's admit, the CRT thing, you say something 3 or 4 times and you don't believe it. We're not a people who sit down and go, let me look that up. We will find it on social media, take a soundbite. Tucker Carlson will say it 12 times and it's gospel. A absolute spiral of misinformation that has been scorching through the counties like a tumbleweed. And when you bring in any conversation and it deals with people's children, you have got an amazing petri dish of energy that's going to explode. We are all passionate about our kids. So I don't negate their passion. However, what I have a challenge is their lack of information and their reliance on lies.
None of this is going away. What happened in Loudoun County? What happened in Virginia? There are all kinds of plans to have that happen all across this country in the coming months and year. What do you hope we learn from all of this so we can carry forward and do better?
I never felt like my voice was ever going to be heard. And there might be other moms of color that are like me, that they just think that their voice is never going to be heard no matter what. And so they stay quiet. If we can come together and start being more vocal and express things so that it doesn't come off as, oh, you're just being, an angry Black woman. you know, but be able to have those conversations with people, and those people being able to have the conversations back, it's going to help. But, you know, people like me who were scared to even come out and say, you know, how they felt and their opinions because they were afraid of what everybody else would say, those are the people that we have to be able to reach and encourage.
I would say this is that I don't want any more burden on me. I don't want any more burden on my children. This is a lot of racial fatigue. So I would pose to you, Katie, because of who you are and what you look like, is that we don't need any more allies. We need accomplices. Because yes, I have been at the school board meetings. I have done that, and I have put those hard things out. And there's going to be some people that are always going to be on the fringe because they will fight against the fact that they think that because we want prosperity and great access and resources for our children, that somehow or other that means that they get less. That group you're not going to change. But people like yourself that look like you, creating action plans to keep this process going. Please don't come to us and say, hey, what else can I donate to? I don't want to hear that. Okay, that's what George Floyd did. Everybody always call it everybody and say, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to whatever. This stuff has been going on since we landed at Plymouth Rock. For me, I'm going to charge you guys with the responsibility, and, you know, happy to talk and have conversation and grow myself in terms of learning. But I'm going to just say, we didn't create this hot mess. We are sitting here trying to navigate this for our kids while this mess is going on.
In terms of Black women in Virginia, we need to hold our forts. We need to keep our kids safe. We need to navigate, as we've all said. But the accomplices, I like that. The accomplices really need to be out in force. They need to be having meetings at their homes, talking to like-minded and some fringe people, having coffee at Starbucks and chit-chatting about race relations and how this really is going on and what's really happening out here. As they always want to say, Black people need to get their own community together and Black on Black crime and all this other stuff like that. Well, white people need to get their community together and deal with their stuff.
Absolutely. Zarel, Nicole, Kenya, if you'll have me, I'm here to be an accomplice. And I know that there are so many other women who are hearing this conversation who are ready to say yes to that too. Thank you so much for your time, for who you are.